Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're going to love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of The Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed. Yesterday, we had a conversation. I think I started off the show talking not about Oprah, but I had a conversation. And, you know, as with many of these topics, they are entry points into a larger conversation about the state of our union and the state of us. And then I got a couple of phone calls, and there were probably more wanting to chastise me. You know, one was like, you know, Oprah's been through a lot to get to where she is. Well, that wasn't the conversation I was having. It wasn't about the career achievements of Oprah, which are stellar, to be marveled, excellent. That wasn't the conversation yesterday. Another person, no, black people always criticizing other black people. No, that wasn't that conversation. Although I think, and this is a question for everyone, should we not challenge people who might be doing harm? I'm asking a question. What do we do with people who have large platforms and are being harmful? Do we ignore them? 866-801-8255. I've made a conscious decision not to. And I don't talk about everybody, but I'm using Oprah because she's one of the largest figures, one of the greatest success stories of our time, that has been, you know, in a place, and now we have 20, 30 years to assess. I asked the question. And the reason why I brought it up is because yesterday, Whitey went to the moon. And I say it that way because Gil Scott-Heron had a song back in the day called Whitey on the Moon. Smith, do you have a little? Yeah, and if anyone's triggered by Whitey, please, these again are, I'm not talking about you personally, unless you identify. This is the thing, like, if I'm not talking about you personally, this is a larger conversation. If you somehow found your way into a conversation that wasn't about you, please ask yourself why, and invite yourself out, because we're not talking about you. We're talking about a phenomenon and probably an ailment that I believe is destroying us individually, collectively in this country and in the world, right? So I was thinking, you know, it was, to me, insane that so much attention was paid to a joyride. Somebody likened it to like an amusement park ride, something that you would find at Disney or Universal. This was not anything for discovery. We did not discover anything important. There were no minerals brought back from space that could help science. There were no scientists on there was nothing scientific. They're real astronauts. Mae Jemison is still alive. And y'all are, you know, celebrating something as they literally systematically remove actual real scientists from websites and from our history, from the lexicon of our country. But we're celebrating women while we take away women's rights. And you're standing there crying and not adding one cubit to the conversation around this mess that we're in. But y'all are celebrating something. So it reminded me of Gil Scott-Heron yesterday, Whitey on the Moon. And then I had to come back and think about the real conversation I was having, which is, what does leadership look like? Who are the leaders? Who do we depend on to tell us the truth, to lead us to? No, I'm asking rhetorically, because I want you to sit and think about, every time you click on something, you are giving it your power, and you're saying, this is something that we like. This is something that represents us. This is something that is good. Even if you think you're clicking on it to make a negative comment, you are also telling the algorithm, because the algorithm doesn't know the difference. I was having a conversation with a brilliant person who is in my life, and I love to have brilliant people in my life. And he was telling me that he worked on the Jesse Jackson campaign, and it was a horrific book that came out about Jesse Jackson when he was running for president the first time. And you know, he was one of the aides to Jesse, and he was like, you know, what are we going to do about this book and this and the articles that are coming? And Jesse Jackson said, nothing. This is good. This, you know, we're like, what do you mean this is good? Well, any kind of attention is good. Like Jesse Jackson understood that. Any kind of attention is good. Keep it coming. And I think quite a few people right now understand that. So they don't care about that. Literally, Trump is in office. We could talk about whether it was, stolen or whatever, but like the first time on the negative, on the grabbing by the pussy, on the, 34-time felonies, like none of it mattered. It never mattered as long as his name was in the news. Several $billion worth of attention he got the first time and the second time because it benefited also the news outlets. And I'm putting up air quotes around news. But can we do it differently this time? And it's our responsibility, all of us, to be more pristine with the things that we take into our psyche, the things that we sanction, because this is what we're doing, right? So celebrating women going into space as Jeff Bezos trips and falls and face plants with his fiance. What is her talent and skill? Like what happened? What did we gain from yesterday? So it was bread and circuses. Panem et circenses. Panem et circenses. Bread and circus. It was gladiator games. And it's the distraction that will continue to get us got. We're already got, by the way. They got us. We already got. Now the work is in ungetting. Can we unget this? Because can we give it back? We've already been got. The death, doom scrolls, the constant attention deficit disorder that we seem to have, and the inability to actually read for comprehension, to think clearly, to think critically, to know things, to care about knowing things. We all have an opinion. We all have an opinion with not a lot of facts to back it up. We're here. We've already gotten got. What are we going to do about it is the question. So I wanted to go back, in the Sankofa way, go back and get it and come forward. And I was thinking, we've been spending a lot of time on Paul Robeson last Saturday in class with Carr, last night in office hours. Paul Robeson being a grand example of somebody who was a football figure, an athlete, stellar athlete, singer, thespian, like stage actor, and an activist that got his passport snatched, an activist that challenged the racism in the system, an activist that refused to bow to tyranny. He was famous. He lost a lot, but he stood up. Aretha Franklin, we just talked about how the FBI, and I didn't know how big a dossier they had on her. Man, they were following that woman because she had the audacity to say, yeah, I'm one of the greatest, best gospel singers, period, divas of all time, but I'm going to use my fame and my money to bail out Angela Bassett and to fund some of the civil rights in the Black Panther Party. I'm going to not just sing, I'm going to also be active and roll up my sleeves. Mahalia Jackson, Harry Belafonte. When I think about even the artists of that particular time, even Marvin Gaye, they used their art. Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? They used their art. Yes. And in addition to having you dance and sing, you were also going to think. And that was important. I think about Sam Cooke and Otis Redding and Ray Charles and Ma Rainey. Bessie Coleman, today's her birthday. People who, of course, were very successful in their art. At the same time, blazing a trail and leading a pathway and lighting torches and making sure that the next generation and the next generation had something. As a journalist, I sit in the seat of a Petey Green. I'm not as bombastic or colorful as Petey Green, but damn it, yes, that man won Emmys, 2 of them, on a local radio station, WDCA, which inspired the likes of Howard Stern. Those of you who signed up for SiriusXM back in the day, for Howard Stern, he was one of the first to leave terrestrial radio. He modeled his career after Petey Green, minus the community activism. He took all of the bombacity and none of the work, because you have to do 2 things when you're in these spaces. You got to bring them in. You may bring them in with the bread and circuses, but you better feed them real food when they come to this table. Petey Green did that. Petey Green's Washington, 6 years on the air. You had, I grew up with the Gil Noble and like it is, and a Tony Brown's journal. Tony Brown. I grew up watching people use their platforms for not just a Charlene Hunter Galt, not just for their own self-aggrandizement, but to actually nourish the community. So I think about, the fall of Rome and how they had all of these gladiator games and all of this distraction, but it's up to the people. And they were afraid of the people because they knew that the people, if they ever caught wind that they had power, oh my goodness, this whole thing can crumble. And it did. We're in a crumbling empire right now. The good thing is, inside this crumbling empire are people that build, that know how to build, that were brought here to build, actually. Whether it was to build a whole nation, railroads, whatever. This is a nation of immigrants that were brought here to build a thing. So let's stop being distracted. And I'm okay with being checked if you don't like something that was said, by all means, but do keep it in context. Do you know what I was really talking about yesterday? And maybe I was not articulate. Maybe you did. Maybe and I was thinking about it after the air because I get sometimes very frustrated because I'm like, why am I getting these calls? This is not even what I'm talking about. What is this about? Why are you taking offense for somebody who has not, to me, if I'm thinking about it? And then I was reminded off the air yesterday, since we're talking about Oprah, and again, Avatar for a lot of people took money to show up for Kamala Harris. She took money. She took money to show up for Kamala Harris. What do we do with that? I'm also reminded that there's a huge vacuum, a void. And this is why I don't talk about necessarily political parties, Democrats and Republicans, because if I'm being honest, I don't know who the next leader is. But we have a binary system. And Trump said he wants a third term. And the country that we have right now looks like he's going to have it because there's nobody saying no. Even the Supreme Court's like, nope. And he's like, I don't care. Make me do it. So we're literally in a dictatorship right now. And maybe we won't have another election. But in the meantime, I would like to see somebody step up, stand in the gap, do some things. I think it's important, but here we are. So I think part of the challenge of being here, sitting in this seat, is to make sure that I lead people correctly, that I don't use these these airwaves to steer folk wrong. So I want to have those kind of conversations. And the best way to have them is to tap on something familiar. So yesterday's conversation, in addition to the ridiculousness of this space debacle, this bread and circuses fiasco, was this notion, and I played the clip from an old Oprah show, of like the desire to want to be liked by these people. And I woke up today to see LVMH, the Louis Vuitton brand, the Hennessy brand, the Moet Chandon brand has fallen from its perch. Now, I don't know if we had something to do with it, but I bet we had something to do with it. Good. Why are we wearing the brands of people sporting our African culture and making billions of dollars because we want to? I got Louis, I got Gucci, who are these people? Are they in our community building schools, institutions? Are they helping? Are they anti-DEI? We're going to shout out Harvard today and MIT because that's what it looks like to say, well, that's what it looks like to be ready, to stay ready. So Harvard has the largest endowment of any college in the world, probably. Trump has threatened its federal funds, and it said, okay, keep your money. we're good. But what you're not going to do, whereas Columbia's like, all right, you're fired. Oh my God, we're not going to get this money. But how much money do you need? You got the highest tuition, and you have these this endowment that you've had for so many years, and you don't have enough to run your college. The HBCUs are going to have some issues, but then that's where the donors, y'all that have gone there, don't you say thank you? Because that's how you get these big endowments, by the way. 866-801-8255.
Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power, a 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed.